Hi everyone. If you are thinking of undertaking a PhD by publication, this video is for you. I'm starting this series of videos where there will be 3 videos, and in today's video I'll talk about factors to consider before deciding to undertake a PhD by publication. In my next video I'll talk about the advantages of doing so, and then in the third video I will talk about the disadvantages of doing so. So let's get started with today's video. The first consideration you must think of is the university requirements. So the rules governing PhD by publication does vary between universities, and it is first necessary for a student considering PhD by publication to establish the specific rules of their university. In some university, it requires approval for a PhD by publication, which must then conform to the guidelines of the relevant college of the university. In general, PhD by publication rules require journal articles and conference articles be accompanied by an introductory and a concluding chapter. In contrast, some institutions require only a single preceding chapter which introduces and summarizes the published work. PhDs by publication may also need to conform to other requirements, such as presenting the thesis in a conventional format, formatted to a style and hardcover bound. Typically, 3 to 5 research articles are required to constitute a PhD thesis. However, this varies with the subject. Now, in the sciences, sometimes it ranges from 2 to 4 good journal articles. Not that the student has had to have it published, but there should be sufficient material in the PhD to allow these articles to be published. The second consideration should be the research subject matter. The scope for PhD by publication is clearly determined in a large part by the nature of the research. Some research topics are more amenable to progressive publication as discrete articles than are others. For example, research that requires data collection over a number of seasons provides less opportunity for publishing early in the research process and probably scope for fewer articles overall than does the research topic of the first author's thesis. So someone I know was researching in animal behavior studies for which he had to collect data over a number of seasons. So of course initially he was not able to publish those papers, but later on he could. Now in more general terms, there may also be strong disciplinary differences, such as those between the sciences, the arts and the social science. So make sure that you find out what are the requirements in your college or your discipline or your department. The third important thing is, of course, intellectual property. Now, most journals require that an author transfer the ownership of their intellectual property, including graphic material, to the publishers. PhD by publication may therefore include or preclude rather alternative publishing and distribution options. This can be an issue for some PhD projects, particularly those such as the first authors, which are undertaken in collaboration with external partners to whom a commitment is made to communicate research results. In this case, the intellectual property constraints imposed by prior publication limits the first author's options for information dissemination to these partners, few of whom have easy access to academic journals. Ultimately, they led the first author to invest substantial time in developing communication products which synthesized doctoral research outcomes in forms which did not transgress the intellectual property restrictions imposed by the journal in which they were first published. The time for development of such communication products would need to be factored into the work plan of similar PhDs by publication. The fundamental importance of supervisory support to doctoral students achieving publications either during or after their doctorates and differs between the disciplinary communities in their attitudes to publication and co-authorship. Supervisory support for publication is more common in the sciences, where it usually involves co-authorship. Regardless of discipline, a student's supervisor may have strong views on the most appropriate approaches to thesis writing and either encourage or discourage their students from pursuing the PhD by publication approach. In our experience, not all supervisors are aware that PhD by publication is a legitimate option, and some remain opposed to it on pedagogical grounds. Students considering PhD by publication should establish the perspectives of potential supervisors prior to appointment and may need to consider changing supervisors if they are unable to resolve opposing views about the appropriateness of undertaking a PhD by publication. Now, in the first author's case, approaching the PhD by publication may be required to engage or write the publications in her or his or her own style. Now that has to be supported by the second and third authors, hopefully, who are your supervisors. Now, however, the diversity of research students' personal characteristics and working style means that students bring with them different approaches and skills to their research efforts. For some, their personal working styles may militate against PhD by publication. Although the second author's experience may be over years of doctoral student supervision suggests that changing such working styles is necessary if students are to progress to publication of their PhD results and eventually to productive scholarly careers. That is why it's very important to establish very early your writing style and how that writing style will help you to transform your publications into something that you can include in the thesis and make it a part of your overall thesis presentation. These days, most universities have programs or centers to help students develop their academic writing skills. In an university that I know, they do provide a support of higher degree research candidates in the arts faculty to commence and develop scholarly publications. However, it may not be the case in some of your universities. Therefore, sometimes being part of research writing groups can be an effective means of assisting yourself to write publications, or discuss with your supervisors as to how you can improve your academic writing. But remember, your overall aim should be that when you write your publications, you should be able to take material from it and then include it in the thesis to make it relevant thesis chapters, in case you're trying to present it in the conventional format. The issue of co-authorship of publication can be vexed. Now, while many universities have policies and protocols on this issue, their translation into practice is not always clear-cut. Some supervisors insist on co-authorship of articles written by the students, while others view this as unethical, except where a substantial contribution has been made, well beyond what is reasonably expected of a supervisor. These established norms, they vary between disciplines as well as between individuals. You must make your co-authorship very clear, the policies regarding the co-authorship. Make sure that you download the relevant document from your university website and have a discussion with your supervisors before you start writing the article. In all cases of co-authorship, examiners are likely to place considerable importance on the issue of the candidate's contribution to multi-author publications. Now, many universities, including my own, require a declaration from the candidate describing the level of their contribution to co-authored articles included in the thesis. So I did my PhD by publication, and when I was submitting my thesis, in the first few sections of the thesis, I had to declare the co-authorship. So in the declaration of co-authorship, I had to mention that in each of the publication, how much was my contribution and how much was the contribution of my co-authors that were my supervisors. Sometimes some universities have a minimum percentage of contribution that the primary author or you as a student must have in each publication. Now the issue of co-authorship can cut sometimes both ways. Students may use co-authorship with supervisors as a deliberate strategy to increase the likelihood of publications being not only written but also ultimately accepted, because supervisors have a reputation in the field in which you are publishing. So supervisors' active and responsible co-authorship can facilitate publication outcomes that might otherwise not be realized. Conversely, formal university protocols and disciplinary norms may not in themselves prevent supervisors claiming more credit for co-authored work than they should. Good practice requires that students and supervisors discuss the issue of co-authorship prior to embarking on a collaborative writing in the context of the university's policies and establish a mutually agreed approach consistent with those policies and professional ethics. Because if your supervisor makes a sizable contribution which is more than yours, including that publication in your thesis may not be the right way to go about it. Some examiners or reviewers might object to it, because in that publication your supervisor has made more contribution, and then if you are using that publication in your thesis, that is not primarily your work. Alright, so I will leave you guys with these points right now. Like I said, in my next video I'll talk about the advantages of doing a PhD by publication, and in the video after that I'll talk about disadvantages of doing so. Please make sure you watch all the videos before you engage in completing or undertaking up a PhD by publication. I'll keep the video short. Thank you for watching today's video and thank you for supporting the channel. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.